Thank you for coming back, those of you who were here yesterday. And what I hope to do today is share with you sort of the journey that we've been on for the last 11 years at Northwestern as we begin to turn this concept of a core facility into a career path, which we talked about yesterday, into a sustainable, we could call it a business model depending on the audience, but for an audience of scientists, what we want to, I think of this as a new value proposition that universities have available to them. And part of my role at the university and now beyond the university is being a cheerleader for this new role. I think my vice president considers it comparable to libraries in the past, to high performance computing today, to animal facilities. These are infrastructure assets that the university has to invest in order to be able to run a modern research institution. And I'd like to believe that core facilities are on the path now to becoming one of these essential pieces of the research infrastructure. So with that introduction, I'd like to take you through sort of what's happened at Northwestern as we have tried to build a portfolio and make it sustainable. This first slide are for administrators as a reminder of why we have core facilities, a variety of value propositions. I think first and foremost it allows faculty like myself to be able to take my research wherever it needs to go. I've been a professor at Northwestern 33 years, and in the past, before there were core facilities, we did collaboration. So I went to a meeting somewhere, got a paper, I might, through contacts, connect someone and ask to expand my research interests into the domain of their expertise through a collaboration. And maybe that collaboration would end up in a grant, a shared grant together, and we work together. What's different today is I don't have to make that phone call. I just go down the hall and talk to one of the core directors. And not only that, instead of having maybe one new area I might embark on, I've got 40 different facilities at Northwestern. I can pick any of them and go and consider how I can move my research project into an area that takes advantage of that technology without having to know anything about that technology. So that's the first one here. It fosters that interdisciplinary research, opportunities for moving research in new directions. Right down the hall, in-house expertise. I didn't appreciate when I first started this how it would become a leverage in faculty recruitment and retention. I mentioned yesterday, we now have our first faculty that we recruited last year who didn't ask for a laboratory, was going to do all of his research in a core facility. I don't know if this is a trend, it just happened, and so we're still trying to get our heads around the fact that a postdoc who just became an assistant professor did all of his work in cores. Didn't need a laboratory. So, not only facilitates recruitment, it gets us thinking outside the box during recruitment. It facilitates external partnerships. I don't have to tell you about that because all you that work in cores understand. And it helps advance the research enterprise for society at large. This is, as you're going to see, a cost-effective way of moving research in new and innovative ways. Institutionally, how does it align itself? It advances the research mission of the institution. As a faculty member, I don't even think about the institution's research. I think about my own research. And if it happens to benefit the marketing department of my university, that's great. But I don't really spend much time keeping up at nights worrying about the institution's strategic plan. And I can tell you, before I was an administrator, I never even read the institution's strategic plan. And I was a faculty member for 22 years in the medical school at Northwestern. So, not true for core facilities. You all should read your strategic plan because you are part of the strategic plan, even if you don't know it, because the administrators like me are trying to leverage our resources through core facilities with the strategic plan of the institution. That means some faculty that come to us for requests for investment in what they want to do, the answer is no, because it doesn't align with the strategic plan. But the cores, it's our responsibility as administrators to make sure it does align. And this is the research strategic plan, of course. It advances the research programs of its users. That's where the PIs, the faculty, do benefit from the cores. And they advance the research in the core facility discipline. This is my spin on this as I go worldwide now, giving these talks about this is its own discipline now, and cores have their own vested interest in the outcome of what we are able to provide and build in our own space. Northwestern has 2 campuses. Typical in the United States is the medical schools in a big city. And I've mentioned to some of you, back during Abraham Lincoln's presidency, this is the 1850s and into the early 60s, was the notion of we should have universities throughout the whole country. Education is now to the point where we need universities. We had private Ivy League schools going back several hundred years, but not the public schools. So almost all of our universities were funded under what's called the land grant program, funded under the Lincoln administration. So almost all of them started in the 1850s and 60s. And those schools were out in pastures near the farms because the U.S. was an agrarian economy. So we have universities all over the country out in these farmlands. But when years later, early 1920s, they all added medical schools and eventually business schools and the like to the university environment, medical schools were put in the cities. So Northwestern is no different. Our medical school is 12 miles away in downtown Chicago, and that's where my faculty position was for 22 years, but now I work in Evanston. And we have core facilities in both locations, and there's some unique challenges here. Medical schools have a hierarchical organization. We all know who the boss is. Our chairman is the boss, and if you don't like what your chairman says, go get a job somewhere else. You don't go above the chairman. That's political suicide in medical school. On the other campus, they go past the chairman, they go past the dean, they go past the vice president of research, they go past the provost, they go past the president, they'll go straight to the board of trustees to get what they want. That's a flat organizational structure. Every faculty member is an entrepreneur on their own, doing their own thing. So in core facilities, when we begin to organize them, part of my job was coming to terms with these cultural differences. And as I said yesterday, business schools teach you that culture eats strategy for breakfast. Meaning, I don't care how good your strategy is, if you don't understand the culture and how to work with it, you will not be successful. So part of my job was learning to be successful in this other culture, which was the engineering school and the arts and sciences school. So 3 schools on these 2 campuses. We're not good at everything at Northwestern. Small private schools like Northwestern are not like a big state school where you're meeting the educational needs of an entire population of a state, for example. We can target what we're good at. Here are the 4 areas that we're good at. First and foremost is chemistry. Maybe some of you have heard of Northwestern before, or some of you haven't, but Northwestern is known first and foremost for its chemistry department. We have 2 Nobel Prize winners, 4 Feynman Award winners, multiple members of the National Academy, all in one department. There's no other department in Northwestern. We consider ourselves, our chemistry, the counterpart of physics at University of Chicago. Economics at University of Chicago is in a class of its own. But chemistry at Northwestern is good, and they have core facilities, and they're outstanding. We have an engineering school. So one is a department, one is a school, the engineering school. Biomedical is on both campuses, and medicine means clinical, core facilities that deal with human patients, research subjects, and that's downtown. And the C on the right-hand side indicates these are in Chicago. And the one on the left that you can probably barely see behind the circles, the spheres, is a very light E for Evanston, and they tend to be to the left. There's a few that are on both campuses. So they're geographically split along these lines. And so one of the challenges for me was to understand how best to manage them. And I came up with a blended model. It wasn't the only university that took this approach. The idea of the blended model is it's not centralized and it's not decentralized. We define those for you. Centralized meaning central organization is responsible for all the cores and funding them and managing them and doing all the control necessary to get them working functionally for the faculty. That's centralized. Decentralized is no control. They come up out of departments, they meet the needs of the researchers right there locally. The central administration, that's the model we started with. Ours was decentralized. We had 35 facilities when I took on this job, and they were all in departments or in centers doing their own thing. The blended model came in as regulations from the feds, the federal government came down about how we were going to manage the finances and various other hiring practices in these core facilities. And so the blended is that we would keep the local control decentralized with faculty directors, faculty advisory committees, those were all new. They, in many cases, didn't have this. They just had one faculty member in charge of the whole thing. And we gave it a little more balance. And then centrally, we do the oversight. And I'm going to spend most of the time on that oversight. What do we do centrally? The administrative structure that evolved is this. It didn't begin. It began with me, half-time for 3 years. And during those 3 years, all I did was try to get my head around what do we have? What are the courses? Can we build a web page to advertise for them? I had a budget, so I could invest in some of the cores. I could do it either selectively or open it up to a grant program. That was my decision. Again, it was half-time as a faculty member. Much like if you're not familiar with academia, it's not unusual for a faculty member who wants to become a dean someday to become an associate or an assistant dean, half-time for 3 years. That's pretty standard. So I did this half-time as a director of core facilities for 3 years. And then during the third year, made the decision, I really like this, I'm going to do it full-time. And then the fourth year was full-time me. So I had to do everything. I was analyzing all the reports, part of my job, and I was also ordering the food for events, scheduling rooms. It's just me. And by the end of the fourth year, my vice president saw the advantage of giving me 2 positions. And that's where we are today. Those 2 positions were a financial advisor and all this information, but I had no time to study it from the course, and an administrative assistant to help on developing the web page and doing a lot of the administrative chores that I needed, billing and travel and the like. So eventually I got promoted up, and that's where we still are today on the left-hand side. Core facility administration, director, and 2 staff. Again, I started in 2009. By 2013, I realized I needed help this is not a full-time job, and yeah, I had some staff, but I needed to deal with these cultural issues. So that was the associate vice presidents on my board, research deans on the board, and a representative of the cores from each of the 3 schools. And we met quarterly. And down below are some of the things that the office handles, but I think that's less important today. But these are the things the board helped me with. Quarterly, we would meet. We've communication across campus, because the medical school might want to solve how we deal with publication guidelines for the course differently than the other 2 schools for how to handle it. So in the board meetings, we could have that discussion. And also, out of that, I can tell you, we did develop those guidelines for publication. Came the important issue of what if the faculty don't abide by the guidelines? What's going to be the teeth in these guidelines? What's going to be the consequences if they don't follow it? And there was some pretty rigorous discussion. I said they can't use courts. No, if they break the rules here, some of them had been breaking rules. I gave examples yesterday of how they broke those rules. I just said then cores are off limits to them. We're just not going to tolerate that kind of behavior of abusing cores, using them to generate data and then not acknowledging them, at least acknowledging them in their publications. And the research team said, well, we, the research teams at the 3 schools, we always meet and talk about publication grievances. We already have a committee. How about we just move it into the committee? I said, thank you. It's not something I really wanted to deal with, but was willing to. And so that's an example of how the committee came forward and helps with these kinds of cross-institutional issues. We talk about challenges and opportunities, federal regulations, compliance, policies and best practices, coordination of financial support, overseeing construction lab improvements, monitoring program review, which I'll tell you more about later, assessing the metrics of evaluation, that's the annual reports, and facilitating partnerships on behalf of the university for all 3 campuses. So the board was very valuable in helping me to think strategically from an institutional perspective. I'm going to now take you to a related topic, and that is jumping to the end. 10 years later, it's now been 11 years, 10 years later, we published a paper and said, what did we learn? And in this publication, I presented it as sustainability model, and what we learned is that there's 4 key aspects of a successful core facility program. And I'll walk you through those 4. The pillars on the lake, it's the people, it's the space, the facility itself, it's the institutional investment, and the institutional evaluation. I'm going to walk you through these. But first and foremost, I can tell you without hesitation, I learned that a facility is the people. Because if we're going to deliver on the value proposition that you can go to a core facility, talk to an expert, and move your research program forward, first and foremost, it's not an instrument, it's not a space, it's a person. It eventually is a team of people who can help you solve a problem. That's a core facility. So I lead with people. Our people at Northwestern are 131 as of last year. I haven't collected this year's because it's happening right now. We wait till August. We're on a fiscal calendar, so ours runs September 1 to August 30th. And we had last year 131 total, 73 PhD, because our model is if we're going to deliver on that value, we need scientists, highly trained, experts in their field. When we recruit, it's international recruitment. These are really top-notch people. And they fall into different categories. The research faculties are the directors. I mentioned we have 45, 33 of those facilities are run by research faculty. The others by managers, but some of them don't have PhDs, but they've been doing this for 20 years and know a whole lot more than any of the PhDs around. So the degree itself, it's the experience too. It's not just the degree. But in a field like core facilities where the technology is rapidly changing, a degree and a recent degree is what most of our core, almost all of our core directors have had their PhD in the last 10 years. It's probably a reflection of the technology appreciation that they need. I gave this yesterday. We broke it up into job families, core technician, core scientists. Core technicians are focused in the facility and getting the work done. Core scientists are the consultants that work with the faculty. I don't want to belabor that. And I mentioned we have to empower them. They have these various needs, technical, administrative. They're able to write. All these skills that they have to master, including business ones. And at Northwestern, 6 years ago, I created this course, really created it 7 years ago. This year, last November, was the first year that we taught it, the 6th year that we taught it. It's taught every November, and it's specifically for people from core facilities. I went into more details yesterday about this. Space. The people who run the core facilities, this is their lab. That was a cultural change on both campuses. For everyone to get their head around, we moved the cores out of the PI's lab, or the faculty, right? PI is our term if they have grants. The central administration recognized that there are different kinds of faculty. The PIs are kind of entrepreneurial and have their own money from grants, and so they got their own special nomenclature, as opposed to being in the music school or the business school. The ones in the science schools who have their own money are PIs, principal investigators, and that's a special status because they have money that they can spend. And so the core directors are the PIs of their own labs. We moved them out of the faculty labs and into their own labs, invested in those spaces. And in some cases, like in Insert, Nuance, and NewFab, each one of those labs costs between 20 and 25 million to build. They're beautiful, they're large, and they're state-of-the-art. And they're run by people like you who run the core facilities. Faculty are jealous. They should be. These are really, we're trying to make a statement here on the space. Institutional support. There's a little bit of breakdown here. I'll show you more data on this. We average $7 million a year of institutional support for the course. And it's been flat for the whole 11 years. And I'll show you what's happened with that institutional support. By being strategic, we've been able to leverage a number of things. But let me give you a little bit of breakdown. So my budget in the Office for Research a year is $2.5 million, and we fund grant programs of various types. Vouchers are one of the cleverest things we ever came up with collectively. Other schools have now modeled this. I borrowed job families from other schools. I borrowed other ideas from other schools. The voucher came out of Northwestern, and this was the idea. How about we pay faculty to do a few things, like faculty retention improvement, new instrument. Let's put it in the core. Let's put it in the core because then we can share it with other people. The voucher is the money we give them then in exchange for that to pay to use it. So it's basically free for them to use, which they were going to get anyway with the instrument, but now everybody gets to use the instrument, but everybody else pays. The faculty member, I mentioned this yesterday, the reason they would do this is number one, if they take it into their own lab, they have to pay the service contract, because more than likely they're not experts at being able to manage this. Number two, they're going to have to hire people, expertise. And number three, in 5 years, it's outdated, they need a new instrument. And if this instrument costs over $300,000, they all go through me for the whole university. Whether it's recruitment, retention, grants. On the grants, there's a checkbox. If it's over 300, I get a ping from the electronic system of grant submission, and we have that conversation. And now, for the last 5 years, 100% are all going in course because they realize we give them the voucher. They get to sign up as much as 2 weeks in advance before everyone else for their program. They get what they need, and it's minimal cost to them. So that's an example of a program. The medical school also has investments that they do in their course, and the provost, especially on things like the loan program that I mentioned yesterday, retention, recruitment packages, lab construction, all comes out of a different bucket. And I'm not including that in the 7. The 7 does include the med school and the Office for Research, and then all the other departments who contribute each year to the running of those facilities. And then the 4th pillar is the rigorous evaluation. So we've got lots of the annual reports every year. I started that in 2010. All of them are required to submit. We use the balanced scorecard, which we talked about yesterday. We have a university-wide survey each year. We use Qualtrics, and the same survey goes to everybody. It allows us institutionally, we deliver the survey. We have standard questions, so the way it works at Northwestern is the first page is self-identification. We don't want to know your name, but we want to know what department you're in, what schools you're in, are you faculty, a grad student, a postdoc, staff member using somebody's facility. It gives us some background information on who's filling this out. We get generally between 1,300 and 1,400 unique ones every year. That represents about 35% of the user base at Northwestern. So it's a substantial amount of information. And then the second page is, do you use facilities in Chicago or Evanston? And it gives you the list, and you check which ones that you use. And then it's the same questions for all the ones you check and you have to go through. And it's a Likert scale, highly agree, highly disagree, and the various versions in between. And at the end, each year, the cores have the opportunity to ask unique questions, the core directors, and then there's a commentary for the users to give comments about that core. And I spent all my time reading those last 2 sections, because the other stuff is, pretty straightforward. And so that's the user, and we give out awards every year for the top cores. And it used to be just the top cores. Now, after this many years, this was the first year, last year, it was last fall, where it's now a cutoff. Instead of giving the top 3 and the next 3 and all the others working, now it is, if you make it above here, you get an outstanding award, the core award, which is a plaque, a photograph, and a little $200 per person. Everybody works 75% of the time based on where their money is coming to pay their salary from. If it comes from the core, $200 as a bonus. So we call it ad pay. So that's part of the annual award process. Program review is an external review. We do that on the course on a rotating basis. All units that are private institutions undergo review. My department of physiology, since I've been there, has been reviewed 4 times every 7 years. And that is to bring in the most outstanding people, scientists, in the field to come evaluate the core. That evaluation is done by the president's office, not even the provost, the president's office and the board of trustees. They want feedback by external experts on how we're doing. Harvard, MIT, we all do it. And we've been doing it in Northwestern since 1983, 1987. We do it with core facilities as well, and I run the program for the core facilities. And we've done about half of our cores now. We do 2 or 3 a year. And external evaluation. So I'm going to show you a little bit about some of those results and how do we know if we're doing a good job? How do we measure success of this investment? We could just gloat, puff our chests up and say we're good. Is that really the best way to do it? No. So I'm going to show you alternative ways in which the administration. This paper with Paula Turpin is really for administrators at each institution. What we provide is a series of tables it's kind of a smorgasbord. Here are the things that we think, there are 6 authors here, we published a couple of papers together from 6 different institutions, trying to take what each of us do, a little bit different. Some are state schools, one's a private institution, a couple of private schools, and then one is a research institute. And we all have annual reports, and they're all a little bit different. So we wrote a paper here that describes sort of wherever you are, here's the way you might approach this. And we've got some tables that allow you to sort of pick and choose and build what we talked about yesterday with the balanced scorecard. And the balanced scorecard was part of what I contributed to this paper. So that's how you measure it institutionally. You might measure it financially. It's not the only way to measure it. But here is the data from fiscal year 19. Our total expenditures in cores was 34 million. Our total internal revenue was 26, and our external was 6, so we're short 14%. That means 86% of the cost of running it was borne by the faculty who were using it, either internal or external to the university, are paying for those services. When I started this 11 years ago, it was 52%. I'll show you the graphs on how that's changed over time. So this means the change has occurred. The faculty have embraced the notion, instead of the institution centrally paying for the cores, we've increasingly shifted that financial responsibility onto the faculty themselves. Then the subsidies for that year, the total internal was 7.4. The subsidies and transfers of budgets, design, and then my office of my 2.5, 1.6 of it went to equipment, where they write grants. We twice a year in the grants program. I have a review panel. The review panel are it's 50-50 faculty and core directors, but every faculty member is a faculty director of the core. They're the only ones who are deciding on how this budget is. And it's twice a year, and I rotate through them, so most of them have been on it 4 or 5 times by now, after all this many years. Here's, if there's no other graph that you remember or slide that you remember, this is the one that has caught everyone's attention worldwide. This is what can happen. See the inflection point in year 5? Something happened. A number of things happened. Some of them I've told you about. What this graph shows you is the blue is the recharge. And the colored combined graphs, that's the internal investment. The internal investment has stayed flat for the whole first 10 years. We're now in year 11. That stayed flat. But what happened around year 5, it went up a little bit, is now the amount of recharge. That's when we went from the 50% down to the 86%. The faculty bought in to the notion that cores are like libraries, cores are like animal facilities, cores are like high-performance computing. They're here. I'd like to believe they're done well. We can rely on them. We can trust them now, use them. And they're showing us with their dollars that they're now using the cores. We're off to the races. Now cores are becoming essential at Northwestern. And I believe they will at other places as well. Now, there are a couple of other things, benefits that is coming with this. Northwestern's research portfolio is growing. We're getting more grants, we're growing the number of faculty, so some of that is simply growth in the institution. So let me show you the growth in the institution. The red line at the top is research awards, right? So last year we just hit 800 million. That's awards from NIH, NSF, other sources of funding agencies. And so that just shows you how it's been gradually going up. And while it shows you 2013, I started this job in 2009. In 2009, we were at 450 million awards. Last year we did 800. So all during this period, while cores are growing, so is the research portfolio. But the two in the middle now, let's just put them aside. The green one, that's that internal investment I told you about in cores. It's flat. Not investing anymore in cores. The research portfolio is growing. What are the other two? That's the blue is the expenditures in cores. Cores are growing too. It's costing us more, right? But the yellow is that investment. That's the paying of the faculty for those services. It's going up. The difference between the blue and the yellow is that 15, 14% now, right? Remember, recovery is 86%. So there's a disparity between the two, and the institution has to pay that difference. But the growth in the research portfolio is going up. The investment in that growth by the faculty in the cores and the amount of money cost to run the cores is going up with it, scaling with it. But the institutional investment is flat. This is what we call the return on investment. The return on those first few years, I'm going to back you up to the previous slide. And in business speak, this is a big deal, right? Notice in those first few years, like the very first year, we're investing more than almost as much as the faculty are, right? The two bar graphs in your fiscal year 9 they're not the same, but they're close to each other. And in year 10 is unusual. You may recall in the US we had a new president in 8 and started in 9. He did what was called the ERA funding. This was the infusion. They decided to do Keynesian economics and spend your way out of the deficits that we created. So he invested in the NIH and the NSF, and in particular, he invested $1.8 billion in core facilities for the whole country. So the institution had to do some cost sharing. So all of a sudden, our contribution here in the colored bar matched what the cores were themselves. That was a federal investment, one time only. And then ours went back down again and stayed fairly flat. But the return on investment is that the research program is growing. Yes, that's part of why the blue graph's going up. But the investment by the institution stayed the same. Other ways of evaluating how well we're doing. Let's go out and ask people in the outside world how we're doing. So there are, the National Cancer Institute has a P30 program that all cancer centers apply for, and I think there's 65 or so in the country that are funded by the National Cancer Institute for cores. It's a program just for core facilities, and it gives some of the money that you need to run medical school core facilities. And they do evaluate. The top two categories are called exceptional and outstanding. And that year, in 13, we had 12 cores that were evaluated by people whose job is to go around the country and evaluate cores throughout the whole country in cancer centers, right? And we had one exceptional, that was Leon Chu, a friend of ours, who was at Northwestern and now runs the imaging facility at the Howard Hughes Institute in Genelia Farms, Virginia. Probably the top imaging facility in the world. John and I both agree we're imaging people. And Leon now runs it. But of course he was exceptional. We knew he was exceptional. He was the only one that I gave the Outstanding Core Award to every year when he was there. But 7 of them out of the 7 others, so 8 of the 12 made the top 2 categories. Just quickly look over. Now you see in 2018, now there's 14 cores, and all 14 are in the top 2 categories. All of them. Reviewed by people who this is their job, to go around the country and review core facilities. And giving, at the time, exceptional as a criterion. Exceptional means not every school can have exceptional. Exceptional to them means we're doing 10 a year and we'll get 1 or 2 exceptionals. That's how rare it is. And you know how rare Leon is, right? Yeah. And now we now have a whole bevy of cores that are in this top echelon category. And that was part of my job, is to make sure we got there, because that's what the faculty need. They want to know, you want that change to occur, that cultural change, and they use cores, you got to have top-notch people. These are faculty-level people who know what they're doing. This is their life's ambition, to be good at their area. Grants portfolios, it's broken up kind of funny here, because in 2009 it was the same with the ERA grant, so that's a special program that year. So previously we had gotten 12 in the early years, and for that particular 11 more, 17 and 18, the last time I collected this, we had 6 SIGs, small grants, 1 high grant, 7. Those are very high numbers in the grants. National Science Foundation, Department of Defense started their own program. And so we've been quite successful in getting instrument grants. And then the core grants, the NIH P30, the Cancer Center grant is one of the P30s. The NIH in the US has grants just for cores. They're called Center Core Grants that you can apply for. The mechanism is a P30. And when we first started, we had 5, and now we're up to 9. The NSF one refers to the material sciences. It's every 5 years. It was renewed in 11 and renewed in 12. Again, that grant, the material sciences, just for cores, engineering cores. So focusing on grants specifically for cores, we've been quite successful. Another external piece. This one, my favorites. Now the people who have been running cores are being poached. They're being poached not to run cores at other places, but to run the whole core program. So in Leong's case, yes, he became the director of really the national facility. It's not a bunch of cores, it's just the national one. But Andy moved up from our chemistry core to run now the cores at Northwestern. Josh moved from being the successor to Leong, got poached by Boston College to become head of all of their cores, and Ben Myers just left to become, he was in the engineering cores to become head of all the cores again. And I have a 5th one in process, hasn't been announced yet. Another one of our core directors who's going to become at an elite institution in the US. Again, various other ways in which we can tell we're doing a good job. External partnerships. Now, this is something you want me to talk a little bit about. Our cores have external partnerships. We have official MOUs with them. So here are 3 of them. There's a couple of others. The one on the left is with Dow and DuPont. This is one of the centers at the Argonne National Lab, the Advanced Photon Source, a big synchrotron, where you do X-ray crystallography. The Dow-DuPont Northwestern collaboration has been in existence now for 22 years. And we just had a meeting with them last week. We plan to continue it for another 5 years. And that one is to do material science, X-ray crystallography. Another one is also at Argonne, and this is a life science one, so doing proteins and nucleic acids, and it's a partnership, an academic partnership in this case. And then we have a partnership at our imaging facility that was started by Leong and continues now as an iconic imaging center, one of 3 in the United States. And other ones we have one with Thermo in proteomics, a partnership with them, and in Siemens with our functional MRI facility, which is mostly humans. So there's 5 MRI magnets for humans for neuroscience, 3 MRI magnets for cardiovascular. All 8 of them are just research, not clinical. And that's a big center. And that gets me to, that's a huge investment. And while we have a large radiology department that uses that investment, we're leveraging it with our partners in Chicago. I wrote and then got the partners' provosts to sign this memorandum of understanding between the University of Chicago, Northwestern, and the University of Illinois in Chicago, the medical school. So we share each other's core facilities. We have duplication, but we also have some things the others don't have, like the functional MRI. The other 2 schools don't want to buy 8 magnets to do functional MRI. They said their subjects over to us, and we run them for them. We just did the same thing with cryo-EM. So your Chicago bought 3 cryo-EMs. They're going to be the center. We don't have enough people at any one of our schools to be able to afford for the tie-in technology. So this memorandum of understanding, which we call the Open Access Initiative, means faculty at any one of these 3 schools can go use the core facilities at the other schools, getting in line just as if they were a faculty member or researcher at that school, and not pay the overhead costs. The overhead cost is something that federal cost accounting standards allows us to do. As I explained to people here yesterday, my team at the national level were the ones who wrote the rules with the NIH and the Office of Management Budget. And the rules are, we're allowed to charge an indirect cost because we're investing as an institution in these facilities, and if people outside the universities want to use it, we should be allowed to charge them an overhead cost, and we do. But with this agreement, we don't pay that. Why don't we pay it? 2 things. Number one, it's reciprocal. The faculty are the ones who have to pay off of their grant dollars for that indirect cost. But if we waive it, then they save money. They can go use, and we provide to each, we made this decision, the directors of the cores of the 3 schools, we offer the subsidized rate, whatever our subsidized rate is, whatever yours, that's what yours will pay. We kept it flat so that the faculty have now all the facilities in the city of Chicago to use if they choose. And this is the kind of data, so this can show you. So I have data, the first year is 11, that's before the initiative. We were doing a pilot, let's just do it anyway. Hopefully the feds don't come and ask us. I'll tell you why, the Inspector General cares about being fair. If you're paying with research, for research with federal dollars, you can be inspected. And you give a special deal to somebody, and other people paying the dollars don't get that deal, you're out of compliance. But we did it as a pilot, we didn't tell anybody. But we wanted to know what would be the dollar figure if we opened it up. You know, would people start using the cheapest services? Would they want to all use Northwestern's or everybody use University of Chicago's? So we tracked it. And what you'll see here from the data for each school, so for the University of Chicago, the 2 colors are the other 2 schools and how much money they spend in cores there. And we have the breakdown by all the cores, but I don't want to bother you with that. So what you'll see at the University of Chicago, the green is Northwestern because we're much bigger than Northwestern is now the size of the University of Chicago and UIC combined. That's how big we've become in just the last 10 years. So when you see the big marks, that's Northwestern at the University of Chicago. UIC, that's Northwestern. And then at Northwestern, the big one is U of Chicago. And UIC is coming up. And now we notice, and so when we meet every year to go over the data, we're looking at the spikes. Now remember, you might think the spike is a good thing, and the core directors say it's a good thing because they're generating money. And institutionally, we're subsidizing them. We're giving them a benefit. So institutionally, we want to look at the spike and ask ourselves, is this okay? The answer is it's better than okay. Why? Because we needed that. They had, for example, we had a facility that went down, and we got to go over to the University of Chicago and use it for that year or 2. It was a benefit to us. Now, what did the University of Chicago think about it? They said, well, actually, that core, which was the DNA sequencing, isn't subsidized. So we're happy that you came and used that core. So we have those conversations, and the same with the other spikes, right? You have to ask yourself, what was happening at Northwestern that we started using UIC during that period? And it's different facilities, right? They go down that have something new comes up, a new instrument comes at one school and not another, and then there's some movement. And we then have the data to be able to go back and analyze that and see what's happening to keep this healthy relationship going. So on our website, we talk about, we have a site specifically for external users, and we tell them, we want you to come use our facilities. It's part of our institutional mission to help researchers in the area, and there's some text here that allows them to navigate how to do that. And we even have for our core directors a workflow diagram on how to handle different kinds of users. There's academic users, there's industrial users, there's the CDC open access initiative users, and so we educate them how to handle them. They're a little bit different. We developed a terms and agreements, we call it a lab service agreement, it's like a PL. So if somebody wants to use our facilities. We don't require this, but companies, if they start to invest anything on the order of 10 to 20,000 a year in a service, we offer this, our terms and conditions. You know, we don't guarantee results. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. This is research, but we give you the quality control measures, the standards, those things that we think are appropriate for a research project as part of deliverables. But by and large, you get the data. It talks about intellectual property, indemnification when you visit campus, if that's necessary in order to be able to do this project. So all of this made it easier, and our external users base has gone up substantially. At the end of it, this is our ending, what we want is key quality staff. The people in the facility have to be outstanding. Absolutely essential. This won't work, right? You won't trust them with your research. I'm sure you guys will be looking at the clients over here saying, you know, you can trust them. They're really good at what they do. And here are the various ways in which we assess that to give them the confidence that they vote with their dollars and get the quality services. The affordable prices, I mean, there's always faculty who complain it's too expensive. They want things for free. That's human nature, it's not a problem. But what you see in the data is that they're spending more and more of their money in there. They consider this worth spending their dollars, so it's working out. And at the end, people like me are then happy administrators. All right, so that's the end of the formal part of the presentation. We're going to take a 10-minute break for coffee outside, and those of you who'd like to come back in, if you can just sit in the first couple of rows here, we can have a one-on-one conversation. So thank you.